Howdy, everybody.
Zach likes wieners.
Hey, come on, dude. All right, we're rolling with it. We're fuck that. No, wait. I'm starting over. Fuck you, because I can't. Now I'm all fucked up. You're a bastard. All right, 3, 2, 1. Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Inspiriment. This is the second take because this bastard over here fucked me up right off the rip, so that's why we're giggling right off the bat. But thank you guys for joining us. I'm super excited for this week's talk. We're just going to get right into it, honestly, because with our name being Inspiriment, one of the things that we always talk about is being inspired. And we thought it'd be a cool, kind of corny, but also incredibly fun episode to talk about the different people and inspirations that have caused us to be where we are now. So I kind of want to start this off in a chronological order of sorts. So going way back to early Sean, early Dylan, early Zach, and kind of thinking like, who is the first person that got you wanting to do art in the first place? Let's start there.
Who want to go first, man?
Get it, bro.
Art? I don't know, man. I was always into it. There was nobody really, man. I was just always creative. I used to watch, like, 'cause my grandmother was like a teacher's assistant, and it's funny, right? Like when you're a kid, everybody seems like so much older and better talented, and then when you're an adult, you look back like, bro, he was like 7. There's no way he was drawing that well. Like, but in my mind, as like a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old is drawing like a comic book artist. And she used to do like this little after school programs. I used to go there, and this kid, he's probably like in the 3rd grade, he used to draw like figures, and I just thought it was dope. Like, man, I don't know, I was just always into art and being creative. I think more so just like growing up where I was in like a small little area, the sticks country, we didn't have a lot.
Wait, where'd you grow up? What city? In what state?
Zebulon, North Carolina, bro. It's the boonies, dog. Like, I remember when I moved to California for the first time, and we had like an ice machine in the fridge, bro, and I thought I was rich, dog. Like, I was so shocked by it, bro.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm talking, you have to drive to town, and town is literally like a local drugstore and a grocery store called like a Piggly Wiggly.
Oh, dude, no way. Oh my God. Wait, I have to stop you. After college, I moved to Wisconsin and I worked in a brewery. I did beer can labels for the brewery and brought in thousands of dollars to them a month. That's just a small flex, not part of the story. The story is, I delivered and sold to Piggly Wigglies, bro. That was like the majority of our fucking income. So in Piggly Wiggly, to this day, if you go to Wisconsin Piggly Wigglies, you will see the beer cans that I designed for Plymouth Brewing Company.
Yeah, bro. Piggly Wiggly, man.
Crazy.
But yeah, man, it was just like my family, it was kind of like a little compound. So we all lived like close together. Again, it was the boonies. And so I just used like creativity, I guess, to like pass the time, because we didn't really have a lot. And I mean, I guess it just kind of stuck with me, man. So had an active imagination.
What was like when you said you use creativity, was it always like drawing, or were you doing other shit too, like making like little rock sculptures and stuff like how did you express your creativity when you were real young?
It was drawing, painting, but it was mostly like cosplaying before you knew what cosplaying was. And so like I said, I grew up watching a lot of like ninja movies. I was always into Eastern culture, so I'd always make like masks out of like styrofoam paper plates. So I get like the paper plate, fold it in half, and then use a rubber band to attach it to my face, and then I would use like pastels to like design it. And then me and my cousin would go outside, pretend like we were ninjas, and just run around. And
That's
try
awesome.
To climb trees.
That is fucking awesome.
Awesome.
So yeah.
What about you, Dylan? How was your early experiences?
Yeah, so I think my first experience just sort of in the art world was right before I was about to start kindergarten. So I think you're 4 or 5 years old. It was my dad's 40th birthday. I was playing outside with my neighbors. For some reason, I was wearing pool shoes. I slipped on wet grass wearing the shoes, and I broke my femur bone. Now, this is the biggest bone in your body. So I was in a half body cast for 6 weeks right before kindergarten was supposed to start and had to be homeschooled. So, anyways, during this time, I just colored like insane amounts of things. My parents told me it's hard for me to remember this, but apparently, like our entire basement was just covered with me doing artwork. And my mom told me some of the stuff that I was doing was I had like these coloring books that had all of the different countries and then like a little cartoon character person wearing like, dresses and stuff from the different countries. And I just did like all of this coloring and stuff. I was super into Power Rangers at this time, so I would color them and things like that. Really into Pokemon. So I was kind of just always really into coloring, but I didn't really uh do much sort of after being really young. I think sort of in that like 4 to 7 range. I didn't really continue to pursue art that much, as I got into grade school and high school and things like that, because I just shifted my focus to wanting to become an architect. So I really was just my art was playing with Legos and Connects and things like that and little engineering things. It wasn't really, I didn't continue to paint. I've never been a drawer or things like that. So didn't
Did
really pick up all of that stuff until, got back into the world of customizing shoes in college.
so just as like a little side tangent, do you feel like that affected like how you conduct your work now? Because like I mean, Sean drew a lot, I drew a lot, and
Mhm.
I'll get into my early stuff too. But like, do you feel like I mean, you use a lot of structure with stencils and whatnot. Do you
Yep.
feel like that comes from either possibly like a lack of confidence early in your abilities to draw, or maybe it's just that's the aesthetic that you like from architecture and whatnot?
No, it 100% plays into it. I'm not a drawer. Like I can only think of like one shoe that I've done previously where I really drew something, and it was kind of a cool challenge. I had a football player who every week he was on the Jaguars at the time, and he wanted his cleats to have something to do with the matchup between the Jaguars and whoever they were facing. So the Jaguars were going up against the Redskins. Excuse me, he was actually with the Eagles at the time. The Eagles were going to be playing the Redskins, and he wanted an eagle wearing like a big headdress and holding like a tomahawk. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to find that anywhere as a pre-made stencil. So I had to combine a lot of different references to make this drawing. But no, I'm not a drawer, and it's awesome. I love hearing all of the up and coming anime artists who say like you need to draw, you have to draw, like otherwise you're cheating yourself. And it's awesome because I actually don't agree with it. You know what I mean? I don't think you have to draw. I think it can be helpful if that's what you're trying to do. If you want to do something like Sean, create original character stuff, create a world, that's not something that I want to do at all. But if you do want to do that, if you aspire to do something that grandiose as what Sean's doing, you're going to need to draw. But because I have no plans to ever do anything like that, if I spend more time drawing, that's taking away from more time I could be doing things that I want to do and that will help me grow as an artist. You know what I mean? So it depends where you want to go. If you want to be a world class anime artist and create your own character design and stuff, you're going to need to be able to draw and freehand things. But I don't think that everybody is going to need to. So it definitely plays into where I'm at as an artist.
Okay, dude, I just also real quick tangent because I love what you said and how you said it just now. And I just want to highlight it in my own words that so I think a lot of times, I also am of the field with Sean where I'm like, drawing and developing those skills is very advantageous for me. I'm an artist before everything else. But I think it's really fascinating, and I didn't think about it until you just said this. And Sean, I want to know if you agree with this, but I think that a lot of times people look down upon stencils and think it's the easy route and the quick route. And I think that in some ways, where I don't believe that it's the easy route, it is most certainly the quicker route in a lot of times. And when you were talking about how, if it's your goal to do something that grandiose, and then you need to develop these skills. You need to take the long route and understand structure and understand principles and design and concept and whatnot, right? Whole nine yards. But I love that, you know, you mentioned you didn't want that. That's not what you wanted to do. You know, you wanted to be able to do things a little bit faster. You wanted to be able to do more volume. But because of that, because you save time on the actual products themselves, then you allocated that time towards something else, like videos on YouTube and quality, and it shows. And I think that's fascinating, because I think the reason why a lot of people give shit to people with stencils is because they're like, you're just doing it faster. Like just put more effort into it. But that's not the truth. Like, you're doing it faster so you can put your effort into a different place instead of just saving the effort, which I think is so important, you know?
Yeah. I think another thought to that is really early on in customizing for me, I was doing things where after it was just simple colorways, then it was simple colorways plus like certain teams' logos. I've always really enjoyed doing like sports team shoes. So let's just say I'm doing the Baltimore Ravens logo. There is zero reason at all to not make that perfect. There's no reason to draw that out in your own flavor per se, you know what I mean? Or freehand it, when I can just use a stencil and make it as precise as possible, because that's what I'm going for. So sort of coming from that realm, when then there might be a time where I have to do a Goku pair, there's no reason for me to not make it as precise as possible. Now, I think that a lot of what the anime artists who work on custom shoes do so great nowadays is a lot of times when they're really good, they're able to make their drawings and stuff look, you know, really work with the overall composition of the shoe. It's not just a sticker slapped on. So for somebody like myself who's not going to be drawing something out and positioning Goku's arm in a certain way, I'm just going to need to spend a little bit more time referencing different examples and pulling from different scenes to make Goku how I want him to look on a Jordan 1 versus a Jordan 6, because the panels are different. You know what I mean? So since I'm not going to be that person to freehand draw it out and things like that, I'm going to have to pull from some different images sometimes.
Okay. Okay, dude. Oh, so I in extension of that, is there anybody that you looked to when you were trying to get better at your work to improve?
Yeah, I think that I've learned every single thing I know about customizing shoes, art in general. I owe everything to watching the show Ink Master. And I just will never stop heaping the praise of this show. And I think to follow up on some of the stuff that I just mentioned, I can think of so many times watching the show where all of the artists had to do the Statue of Liberty. So you have 8 different artists who have to tattoo the Statue of Liberty on 8 different human canvases. Now, the Statue of Liberty always looks the same, right? It might look different from different angles. You might be doing a full body versus just, you know, the head or something like that. But another thing that's really important when you're working on a human canvas is you're going to tattoo the Statue of Liberty differently on the ribs than you would on the deltoid or on the back or things like that. So that's where it's almost like working on different shoes. Just so often I would hear them talk about the different challenges that come with working on different body parts and things like that. And okay, cool. Now I need to reference this, but I need to shape it a little better because now I need it to wrap around a pre-existing tattoo and just little things like that. So to me, I just think that that show has taught me so much more about art, customizing, thinking about design overall, than anything else I've ever come across.
Oh, dude, that's fucking awesome. Just so is there anybody in particular from that show? Because I've heard you reference that show several times, and I actually want to hear some thoughts from you, Sean, in a second too, because I think I see the perfect way of linking this. But like, is there anybody in particular, any tattoo artist that you remember from that show that you were like, holy fuck, they are doing it next level, like real, like specific people?
Yeah. So there was an artist in season 4 who ended up winning. His name was Scott. He unfortunately passed away a few years later. But in one of the like final 3 or 4 episodes, he got called out for cheating And this was like the only time this has ever happened in like 13 or 14 seasons. He got called out for cheating because one of the artists said that he was like basically copying like a pre-made tattoo or something like that. And he ended up saying, no, you baboon, I'm referencing. I've taken, I think he was doing like a statue of a lion or something like that. And he combined sort of what I talked about, a few different images and referenced them and created just this badass tattoo. And I think across the hundreds of artists that have participated, he's been one of the best. And so for him to get called out for copying and say like, no, I'm referencing, this is my style of design. Like, I'm not just going to freehand something when I can pull from what already exists.
Boom.
And when I saw that, I was like, that makes so much sense. You don't necessarily have to draw a statue of a lion out of nowhere when there's already some that you could pull from. And he's not, in my opinion, everybody else can view it differently, but he's not copying. You know what I mean? He's just referencing and using what's available.
That's fucking dope, dude. I love that. And so the way I think that this plays in a very interesting way with you too, Sean, is like you have a similar mindset from what you told me in the past of like the way that you approach your shoes, where, certain parts of the shoe lend themselves better to certain characters and certain designs. And you incorporate swoosh with a lot of the different things in different ways. But I think one of the things that's always impressed me about your work that drew me to it was the characters feel so comfortable and at home in such complicated places on the shoe. Because you don't take the toe box and do a top-down view of like, a full scene of characters where it's like almost entirely flat and it's almost like a graphic, like you put a graphic on it. You take a part of the shoe that might even be the most complicated part of the shoe, where all the panels almost meet with the swoosh on the side of the Air Jordan 1. But it looks so seamless and all your characters look at home with it, right? So it's a very similar way to what Dylan was saying, where the tattoo artists kind of approach a body where they're incorporating the design into the movement of the body. So now I'm curious, like, was there anybody that, other than anime shows, right? Was there any particular artists that you look to grow your craft? No?
Man.
Wow.
No, bro, because I quit. I had no interest in it. Like once, like Dylan, right? When I started getting older, I just I lost interest in it, right? I started focusing more on basketball. So then by the time I got to high school, bro, I was playing ball year round, from team ball, AAU ball, local, high school. So I wasn't doing anything art related outside of like me taking fourth period art because it was an easy A. See what I'm saying? Then after high school, it was just like, at that point, you only make money when you're an artist, or so you hear, when you're dead. And then when I started customizing, for those 3 months, I quit. And then I just gave up on art completely for 12 years. So I wasn't interested in it at all. I cared nothing about it. It was like one of those things where I'm not gonna say I hated it, but maybe I resented it.
Mm-hmm.
Were you drawing at all in that 12-year stretch, Sean?
Huh?
Were you drawing at all in that 12-year stretch?
Really, bro. Like within the 12 years, I painted my desk with Darth Maul. I painted one canvas and drew maybe a couple pictures, bro. I had no interest in it, man. It was kind of like, I think part of me was I always wanted to play basketball. And then when I got hurt, it was kind of like I knew art was there, but I didn't want to do it because I felt like I couldn't do what I actually wanted to, which was play basketball. So it's like, well, if I can't play basketball, I don't want you either. And so I had no interest in it, bro. I just worked and played games. And then when I got back into customizing, honestly, the first person I saw was Dylan. Because at that time, I was just like, if I want to try something new. And I saw do his airbrush videos. And I was like, maybe I should try airbrushing. And then when I got back into it, that's when I found out about everybody else, like Mosh. You hear about Serato and stuff, just because of, TV and I guess, but I just wasn't into art culture or anything like that, bro. I just kind of hit the ground running, man. Just kind of went full speed. And so now it's like everything that I am into is either like comic book, anime, manga, things like that. So
Is that what you reference whenever, you know, okay, so let's say like you do a mock-up of a Dragon Ball pair
Mhm.
and something, we talked last week, was it last week or the week before about, when you look at something, it's just not right. So then the onus is on you to figure out what exactly it is that's wrong. You run into a situation like that, surely from time to time. So like whenever there's a situation like that, will you reference comic books or like watch anime and like stop the screen? Like how do you work through those times where you've given your best and it's not quite right? So like where do you go?
I use Pinterest a lot. I may watch something, but normally if I hit like a wall, I just don't think about it. I'll move on to something else. I kind of try to just let my brain reset.
Yeah.
I'll look at comics, but for some reason, like the comic art style, I'm not really into. I don't really like the way they shade, and and comics are less stylized, so they're more, anatomically accurate in a sense. Whereas like manga and anime, it's more stylized, and for some reason, I think that's what I'm more into. But for the most part, bro, I just kind of take a break or I move on to something else, honestly, because I felt like when I start forcing stuff, I end up just doing something I don't like just because I want to hurry up and get it out of the way.
Okay.
How about you, Zach?
How about me? What?
Just
What do
everything.
you do, bro?
We answered. What do you reference? Where do you feel your art style comes from?
So this conversation's actually fascinating to me because I am so different from both of you guys. Because so whenever I was younger, I was much like Sean, I think. Actually, it sounds like all of us. Except I didn't really have an event like you, Dylan, that kind of like sparked my interest.
Mhm.
It was just from a young age, I just wanted to be drawing and creating. And I remember I used to love Pokemon so much. And oh my god, I just have a flood of memories coming back. This is fucking awesome. So when I was younger, I would go to my grandparents' house, and I don't know if you guys have used these before, but they have like they're kind of like puff paints, but they're stringier and they're very old, where like they came in little bottles, and the goal of them was to be like stick on to windows. So they give like templates, right, where you could have a flower, and then you take this little paint and like run it along the template of the flower, and then let it dry, and then you peel it off and put it on the window. So it was like stained glass paint, pretty much.
Okay.
And I remember a lot of like my creativity came from my grandparents' house because they lived like 9 hours away. And my grandparents would always take us fishing, and they'd always buy us hockey cards and like baseball cards. And it was just like it was like a kid heaven. It was just a mecca of everything that I wanted to do when I was younger. So that's where like all my creativity flourished, I think. And so that was the earliest that I remember of doing something creative where I was like, oh, this is the shit. And then as time went on, I got more into drawing for sure. And I started getting into Legos heavy. I fucked with Legos for
Ooh,
years.
I forgot to mention Lincoln Logs too.
Oh, I forgot about Lincoln Logs, dude.
Please tell me you've been
buddy.
in the Lego world, bro.
Man.
Oh my god.
Good times. Good times.
Dude, at Bionicles, I used to
Bionicles. Yeah.
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 It was a little bit later too. I started to get into like video games like Maple Story and Gaia Online and like stuff like that too. And that was a whole different world. But
Is that when you started min-maxing?
That's exactly when I started min-maxing. Min-max t-shirts coming soon. Be on the lookout. So those are like my early adoptions of art and like creativity. But my issue where you guys are saying that you stopped doing art, I never stopped doing art. I just got lazy and incredibly complacent. Where like I was still doing shit, but I was doing it because I knew I was good at it, and I pretty much just like a subtle flex from time to time, where somebody would be like, "Oh, Zach, like you haven't done much in a while." I'd be like, "All right, fucking watch this, dude. And I just bust out some like crazy ass flower bouquet watercolor to make them shit their pants and then move on with my day.
Yeah.
So like I never really improved for a very long time. And that was my biggest issue. So why I say it's interesting to me and like how we're so different is because I had inspiration, and it shows my work now. I had inspiration from so many different people, from so many different mediums and so many different facets of life. So much so that like I literally made a list going into this because I draw my business right now is just a culmination of essentially a bunch of different people. And I think that's very interesting because like, so when I first started, then my favorite artist was James Jean, which I don't know if you guys know who that is or seen his work. It's very detailed. Like, do you remember the Lake Latonka pair of shoes that I did? It was like actually, hold on. I think I have them. Yeah, I have them. Hold on.
And now a word brought to you by our sponsor.
So sorry for the people on Spotify, but I just had to go grab these shoes real fast, or any audio listeners. But this was the first original shoe that I did. And this was literally just, it was an entirely original design, but the style was based off of James Jean entirely. And that was my starting point. But as time went on, like, and I started adopting new mediums, I found so many people to draw inspiration from, like George Condo is a fine artist. And I loved his approach to, he'll use different mediums, but he'll also use completely different concepts and some graphics with some abstract, and just his mindset of like, you can do whatever the fuck you want when you're an artist. Like, that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what kind of drew me into so many different styles. Man, even like, I'll say Enzo was actually one of my biggest inspirations too. For reasons that like are completely unrelated to style or art, but because he's been so committed to seeing other people like succeed that, I think a lot of people get caught up in like, what should I repost somebody's story? Like, I don't really like the art that much, but they're like my good friend. And I don't know, Enzo just doesn't think about anything as far as that goes. He's like, I know these people, they're good people. Like, even people he just met, he'll just repost shit and constantly comment. The dude's as busy as anybody else, but like, that was very inspiring to me. That was a big changing point. But I think right now, as it stands, my work is most influenced by probably Martin Margiela, and a lot of his old runway shows, and some contemporary like fine artists like Carol Walker and Hugh Hayden.
Yeah, I be feeling like a scrub lord sometimes, because like a lot of artists like you and you guys know all these people are like or maybe like the old masters, like when you get into like fine art or you study thing like maybe like Da Vinci and stuff like that.
Yep.
Like, I don't know people's names, like, and I don't know if that's because I had like that disconnect. Because like I said, bro, like art, and I've mentioned this before, like art to me was that girl that likes you, but you didn't like her. If that makes sense. Like, you had the cheerleader or whoever you wanted. That to me was basketball. That was what I was pursuing. And then art was there as that girl that I had no interest in, but it's always there.
You friend zoned her.
Huh?
You friend zoned her.
Pretty much. It's just like, hey, I'll pick you up whenever I'm like bored.
Yeah, like I had a good time and all, but I'll call you.
Yeah, pretty much. And so it was just kind of just like, it was just there. So I just had no interest in it. And then when I got into customizing for the first time, the first person I saw was like Soul Junkie. I think he was out of New York. And then that's when I found like Jacob Patterson on YouTube. The Jacob Patterson one more again. And then I quit because it was like, bro, it's like, I can't make any money doing this. Like, the only business I got when I was 19 was everybody that worked with my dad. At the time, there was no Instagram, bro. So I was just like, I might as well just start working, dog. So that's when I just started working. And then this last time was when I got inspired by Takashi when I was at Complex Con. And I think that's kind of what set it off, because everything at Complex Con is designed by him, all his artwork and everything. And he had his own booth too, and people were going crazy. And so it was kind of just like, yeah, bro. I mean, I guess you can do it. So I mean, I guess better can try. So
Well, dude, oh, go ahead, Dylan. Go ahead.
No, I just think it's so cool to hear this, even hear you guys who, I've known for a long time, but to hear you guys talk about your inspirations and stuff. And I think it's cool for hopefully a lot of listeners that maybe feel like what Sean just mentioned. Man, I don't know nothing about, these world-class artists. I don't do a ton of research and all this stuff, but inspiration and creativity and all that can really come from anywhere. You don't need to have a master's degree in art history and things like that. You know what I mean? I really got into the world of customizing shoes because I loved shoes, not because I believed I was a great artist or loved art. I loved shoes. So that's why I started with just recreating colorways and things like that. And over time, things change. You know what I mean? You grow as an artist just naturally doing anything more and more. So it's really fascinating to hear.
Yeah, dude, and I would love to elaborate on this too, because I too never gave us like I just never really gave much of a shit about different artists. It really wasn't until I started trying to develop my own style that I started remembering names. And that's just because it was those things that, like, once you see them, you know when you really like something.
Yep.
You just know.
Yep.
And like we were talking about earlier, when you know something's wrong, it's on you to figure out what it is. When you know you like something, it's on you to figure out what it is. And that's why I remember these names, because one just linked to the other. And it was different aspects of the different interests I had in my life that these artists covered in some way that I got that feeling with. So like, for example, James Jean, I literally just liked how it looked. I was like, that seems like a good place to start, right? Like, it looks cool. So I tried making something that I thought looked cool. And you just start, yeah, I want to hear it. Yeah. But like, talking about my the artists that inspire me right now, like Martin Margiela, right? Margiela's approach to fashion was like very counterculture at the time, but more importantly to me, it was very down to earth. It was things that you could look at and understand, and it was very relatable in a way without having to understand a thing. The visual language of it was relatable, which I just thought was fascinating. So like one of the runways that he did, for example, it was literally a like sprayed on. It was like a spray tan essentially that he did that he called a shirt. It was a look, right? So it had this band going around the woman's chest, and then the V-neck was literally like a spray tan essentially. And I just thought it was just the most fascinating thing. I was like, I've never seen anybody approach fashion like this. I was like, it's such a cool take on it. So like, how can I apply something like that to my work? How can I look at what I'm doing and not make it so it's not just applying paint on a shoe, it's incorporating something that is relatable without having to be able to understand it. So that's why I remember a lot of these people's names, is because they play such integral parts in my business, and I've spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to understand what it is that I like so much about their work, that how could I not remember it?
Yeah, I think it's important as an artist to really be able to look at a lot of art so you can decide what you like, what you don't like, and then start to really be able to decipher in your head why it is you like certain things and why it is you don't like certain things,
Yeah, absolutely. Wait, were you gonna say something?
Yeah. All right, buckle up. We're about to get weird. We're going on a weird tangent. So
Okay.
buckle up, boys. All right. So it's so funny how certain little moments in your life that you wouldn't think are just gonna go off like a wind into the night, not gonna mean anything. So growing up, loved the show Boy Meets World. Sean, you with me?
yeah.
All right, good.
100%.
Good. All right, good.
The penguin,
So,
bro.
Didn't even ask me.
We're getting there. No, I know. Zach, you're very sheltered. So, anyways, Boy Meets World, one of the most important moments in Boy Meets World when Corey and Topanga are broken up or whatnot, and Corey stays up late, talks with the girl at the ski resort. I think they kiss, and then in the next episode or something like that, Topanga goes on a date, and she goes on a date with what you could kind of describe as like a pretentious guy, and they go to a museum and they look at Starry Night, the Van Gogh painting. And I think before that, before the date, she tells her friend Angela, if a guy can describe what Starry Night means, that would like make me connect with him, or something like that. So anyways, the guy she goes on the date with has this just incredible detailed explanation of like what Starry Night means to him. So I'm seeing this probably between 7 and 9 years old, if I had to guess, thinking of the timeline. And I just remember thinking like, that's an amazing painting, but I can't necessarily see or describe what he's saying. So I always thought, okay, like art in a way, or, Van Gogh, it's just one of the names you hear as a child, one of the best artists ever. Maybe I just don't have the eye to really understand art. Maybe I'm not smart enough to get it. I just don't get it. You know what I mean? And I loved Corey. And so I didn't want Topanga to be with this other guy, of course. So then she says something like, I'm going to take Corey to this art museum with me. And if he can't like describe Starry Night like perfectly, like I'm going to go on another date with this other guy, something like that. You remember this, Sean? Do you remember this episode? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, goes with Corey, and Corey does not say anything like that. Like he's just like, this doesn't have to have some bigger meaning. Like this doesn't have to talk about what, the city means and the stars, all that. Like all that matters is me and you, or something like that. Corey
God
says,
damn.
like,
Okay,
he's
Corey.
like, dude, I don't care about all this. I don't care to pretend to be, this snobby art guy, things like that. And for some reason that just always stuck with me. And I just remember thinking like, it's just funny that like a TV show made me think of art and like understanding art and like this funny, weird, pretentious way that like, okay, I'm just somebody who doesn't get it. I'm not one of those, Ivy League guys like this guy was at the time who she took with him. So that's just a funny little unlocked memory I thought about when we started talking about, art history and things like that.
Yes, I'm the same way, bro. Like, don't take me to an art gallery because I'm not going to tell you nothing, bro.
Yeah.
What's that? That's some red paint on a white canvas, dog. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. I don't know
Right.
what you want me to
You
tell
can say like, hey, that looks great. Like that's
Yeah,
an
right.
amazing painting, but it doesn't necessarily like you're not a lesser person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I walked away from. Corey wasn't a lesser person because he didn't pull the meaning of life from Van Gogh's Starry Night,
Yeah. Like the only person I've ever attempted to actually analyze and make sense of some artwork is made by the boy, Zach Kroll, man. He's the only one.
Hey,
Wow.
my
He's
man.
only one.
Yeah.
Everybody else, bro,
I look at
I don't even try, honestly.
Thank you, boys. Fuck yeah.
Right. And I think Zach's pieces are layered like that. They're meant to be viewed that way. Like, and the thing is Zach can have a meaning for his piece, but it might be interpreted totally differently by somebody else. They might get something totally unique from it. And that's what's cool about Zach's art style, and how did he do, it might be a way for Zach to sort of measure how he did do a majority of people take away the intended emotion that Zach was trying to convey with his pieces. Whereas like, something that Sean does, not that it can't convey an emotion, but it's just like, did Sean nail the visual characteristics of this character and have a really clean overall balance? It's not necessarily trying to invoke some bigger emotion and things like that.
Yeah, dude. And first of all, I love that. Absolutely every second of that story. I've never seen that show in my life, but actually,
Of course
I think
you haven't.
fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Watch that episode just for that, like just to see that how that plays out. It's interesting. It's interesting.
So I want to play a little game here, right? Here's why. I genuinely think that if you look at a piece of art and consider it not for what it looks like, but for what it is, then that's where it's interesting to me. And like, let me clarify. And here's where the game comes into play, right? So let's take a pair of Sean's shoes, right? Let's go with like a Kilo 47 pair. Pick any one of them.
Most recent one.
Yeah,
Watch
absolutely.
the YouTube video after this if you haven't already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Halloween
bro.
edition.
Fuck yeah. That was a great video, by the way, Sean. You killed it.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. So let's take Sean's most recent Kilo 47 pair. So you look at it, right? So, and you can see the relationship because I'm comparing this to like paintings on a wall at a gallery. So you look at Sean's shoe and you get what you get from it. You know, either you can look at it immediately and say like, that's what it looks like. I like it or I don't like it. Or you can take a little bit more time and like analyze it and figure out, you know, what characters are doing what, why they're posed the way they are, and go a little bit deeper, right? So you can totally stop there. Now, what if I told you, let's hypothetically say that Sean's shoe was placed 20 years in the past. So instead of making it last week or whatever, it was made 20 years ago. Now that shoe has a completely different context. It's before a lot of the popular animes. It's before any of this customizing stuff happened. The entire dynamic of the shoe, it's before, you know, Sean is who he is now. So as a person, as a culture, and as a setting are completely different just by moving it 20 years in the past, right? So to me, that is infinitely more interesting. And the reason I bring that up is because that's going to happen 20 years in the future from now, right? So like as a painting on a wall grows and as it ages, then the entire dynamic of everything changes. And that's why to me, it's so interesting learning about art like Margiela, not for the House Margiela now, but for the House Margiela 20, 30 years ago and what it meant then, right? Because when you start thinking about things like that, not as just the visual of it, but like what comes behind it and why it's interesting, there's a million things you could place and a million things you can change other than the time, right? You could change like maybe that person was like going through a horrible time in their life or a phenomenal time in their life. There's a million things you can change that make that narrative infinitely more interesting than just what that Kilo 47 pair looks like, right? So that's why to me, it's cool thinking about art from that perspective and thinking to myself right now, okay, at some point I'm going to be 20 years in the future. What do I want to do right now that conveys me in a true way and also is commentary on whatever is interesting to me at the time? That's why I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, see, I want to be like that, but I think I have a hard time doing that. Like finding emotion in artwork. See what I'm saying? Like, you know, there's pieces that people look at and, you know, you'll hear them like, oh yeah, this just touches me so much to the core. And then I'm just sitting there just looking at it and I'm just like, what? And it's like, I want to feel that way when I look at certain pieces, like even my own work, like when I think about it, it's like, I want it to have meaning and I want it to invoke some kind of feeling. But then I think about, okay, now but I would have to kind of change the art style, I guess, or the imagery, or maybe the lighting. Like, I don't know, bro, but it's like I think about it and then it's like I want to do it, but then there's part of me that's like, I kind of like how I'm doing it. And then it's just like when I look at other people's work, it's like I want to feel and examine things and break it down kind of like you do. You know, just like if you go into an art gallery and like Dylan was talking about, like dude can break it down. And then it's like when I look at it, bro, I just see a painting.
I don't think you have to do that. I think you can do that. The way that Zach presented everything is that you can do that. You can think of your art like this. And Zach's art style works for that. Whereas like Sean and kind of Sean and I are a little bit closer to each other than Zach, who's very much doing his own original stuff. Whereas like, dude, at the end of the day, I'm also trying to run a business and grow a business and things like that. And sometimes I'm painting what I'm kind of in a way commissioned to do and things like that. You know what I mean? So not everything is just me sitting in a dark corner thinking for so long, how can I, you know, convey this emotion and things like that. A lot of times my artwork is, here's a theme, go and make something cool in your art style, and here's a chunk of money. Okay, cool. Let's run with it. You know what I mean? It's not meant to, like, what I'm doing sometimes isn't meant to make people, you know, find the root of their life just through viewing a picture of it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
That's not what I'm intending to do.
yeah, man, it's a rough one.
I think that's a beautiful point, bro, because there are you know, consequences and emotions attached to the decisions that you make, especially in art.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, it kind of sounds like a meme when you say, like, I don't want to be sitting in a dark corner thinking about, you know, what the fuck the meaning of life is in my work.
Right.
But like, in a pretty real way, that is the reality. And
For sure.
just replace
For
the
sure.
dark corner just with like emptily walking around the day. You know, it's like I'm in my head so frequently. And
Mhm.
and not only that, but like, you know, the route that I chose is, you know, you're talking about, you're running a business. I'm trying to run a business while doing this, and it's very difficult. Like, you know, it's hard. It's hard connecting the two, I guess is what I'm saying. You know,
It
where
is.
like,
It
and,
is.
and my poor girlfriend right now, like, we're talking about, you know, what's going to be coming in the future, and I was just very blunt. I was like, dude, I don't know what's going to happen. Like
Mhm.
my life is so volatile right now that, you know, a year ago I could have popped off and made in 50 grand in a year, like after the first year, because it's art. Like, maybe people really resonate with it and it kills. Or, you know, Tom Sachs had to wait 20 years of working a part-time job until he could work full-time as an artist.
Yep.
I have no idea. Like, every day I'll do the most that I can to try to get towards that point. But
Mhm.
like, when that actually happens is pretty much completely out of my control.
Well, I
Everything
want
in
to
life,
ask you
everything
something,
in
right?
life, real quick, Sean, everything
Mhm.
in life is about trade-offs. And so many decisions that you've made, Zach, have not been about the money, have not been putting the business first. I can just see that without even talking to you about your exact plan, but seeing a lot of your work and how it's not just ever, let me just sign up for the quick buck and things like that, you know, and not saying that it's a good idea to be a sellout or anything like that. But sometimes at the end of the day, when you're forced to make certain decisions around money and things like that, you might do certain things differently. You know what I mean? So I just think 9 times out of 10, it seems like your trade-off is, I don't care about the money. I care about the art, what it means, how it makes me feel, how it's going to make others feel. Whereas if your number one absolute priority, the only thing you cared about was building a successful business, you would make some different decisions.
Absolutely, for sure. And I want to put the caveat on that um that has changed much more in the last 6 months. I should say, actually, the last 3 months, than ever has been. That statement was much more true 3 months ago than it is now, because I'm realizing as time goes on that now that I have a language, a visual and a communicative language to my art, then there's not nearly as much of a reason to do what I was doing a year ago right now. I don't need to
Mhm.
sacrifice money for style. I don't need to improve at 1,000,000 miles per hour to be the best artist of all time now. Like, I dedicated 2 years of my life to pretty much not making money to get to the point that I am now. So to continue to do that is just irresponsible and negligent, because I'm not building towards anything anymore. I'm just doing it because that's what I did.
Yep.
So, you know, recently, I'd say the last 3 months, but more so the last 6 months, that has changed, and I'm realizing, you know, and taking on more responsibility for myself and understanding that it needs to become a business. And I think that it has become a business and that it will continue to grow as a business from here on out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, buddy.
Yes, sir. Wait, what were you going to say, Sean, by the way?
Before you were so rudely cut off.
Because I know you do the interpretation. You're into like the fine art thing, right?
Mhm.
I was gonna say, are there a lot of art pieces that sell for like crazy amounts of money that don't invoke feeling? If that makes sense. Like outside of NFTs, right? Like 'cause a lot of NFT projects is just like, to me, just like a character. But when it
Right.
comes to like canvas paintings, I feel like most of them that sell for like stupid amounts of money are more of the abstract, I guess, or contemporary pieces that
Or just
invoke
for
some kind of
status,
feeling.
look at
Huh?
Banksy. Or just for status, look at Banksy.
Well, yeah.
You know?
But I still feel like his work still invokes some kind of feeling or has a meaning to it. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Or like
Well-
what, the dog playing poker picture?
Well, it's a great painting, by the way. Well, so to answer your question in a way that will piss you off, I don't really think that's for me to determine because there are a lot of paintings that sell for a lot of money, but whether they invoke emotion or not isn't up to me. Like your pieces invoke emotion to me because I know you, like, and I know what went into it. I pretty much am forced to know you at this point, so I know a lot about you and I know what goes into them and I know the world you're trying to build. And I know that the people that see the art that you do right now get about 0.1% of what that world actually is. And that I get like 1% of that world. Right. So like I have a completely different understanding of your work than most people will on Instagram, just from looking at it. So to me, when you make a new piece, it's like I'm pumped. Like it gets me emotional. Like it makes me think that it's like the next step on like a 1,000-step journey of where you want to be. But if someone doesn't put the time into that, then it doesn't evoke emotion to them. And that's how I feel about every fucking painting ever. Is like, sure, there are some objectively like not as good paintings, right? But like Banksy is a perfect example, bro. You know how many people have just done stencils exactly like Banksy that are complete no names? And like you could look at Banksy's art, not know it's Banksy, and have no emotion attached to it. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. So they did this. Banksy himself made screen prints and sold them for $10 on the streets in a tent in New York. He just, like, you see those tents where people will put up like artwork that looks like it was done pretty fast, sell for $10 as like presents and shit.
So you know what he looks like now?
No. So Banksy himself put this up anonymously. Nobody knew that he was the one who did this. He put up a tent, put up his work in there, sold it for $10, and almost none of them sold. I think he sold one, and they said that it was to like somebody who was getting a present for a family member. And then they revealed that it was Banksy that put it up, and instantly, full crowd, totally gone. But the point being is like, until you knew it was Banksy and knew his story attached to it, nobody gave a single fuck about it. They literally wouldn't pay $10 for it. And that's how I feel about every art piece ever. Is like, it's not the art piece, it's the story attached to it and the person who's doing it. So if you don't want to communicate that, that's cool. But then you're relying on somebody looking at it and having an emotional connection to it just from that. And that is very rare.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Drop the
That's
mic,
good.
bro.
That's
That
good.
was
That's a good ender
bars.
right there. Yeah.
Actually, wait, let me see. I did finally start a timer for one of these. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, dude, this is fucking perfect. Hey, thank you guys all for listening and for watching. This has been great. Yeah, bars for fucking sure. This is an awesome episode. I hope you guys found a lot of value from this. If you haven't seen already or aren't following us, go follow us on Instagram and TikTok, because a lot of these episodes we cut down into little shorts and very interesting parts that you can just watch that are very entertaining. And also, if you did enjoy the episode, please like, comment, and subscribe, because now more than ever, that helps fucking massively. So, boys, is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Anything coming up before we wrap her on out?
Nope. Grind don't stop, dog.
Keep it going. Keep it fucking going. That's straight from OG Bobby, baby.
Yeah.
What about you, Dylan?
I got nothing, man. It's November. It's cleat season.
Yeah,
I'm half a human.
Sounds good. I do want to actually, I never shout anything out, but I don't know when this is happening, but I think when this episode comes out, then the first AR runway show that I've ever done, and I think that the world has ever done, will be coming out either now or has just come out. So there's full plans in the future for what's going to be going on to that. But by this point, when this releases, I know that all of those plans will have come to fruition. So please go check that out and let me know your thoughts. And
Where can you watch it at?
it's definitely going to be Instagram. It's going to be a crowdsourced runway show. So the same way that I do the SAT AR days, it's going to be a communicative video and a lookbook from the community. So definitely over on Instagram, up on my website, it's Bald Boy. But more importantly, please go support us at It's Inspiriment. So thank you guys so fucking much for being here. It was an awesome episode, and we're looking forward to talking to you next week.
See
Have a
you
good one.
guys.
Peace.